Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome everyone to the 17th Virtual History of 2021 presented by Baltimore Architecture Foundation and Baltimore Heritage. This is Nathan Denny's. I'm the Associate Director of the Baltimore Architecture Foundation. First, thank you to everyone who donated to be with us today. We really appreciate your support. And before we get started, a few announcements. Next week, join us for a presentation about the effort to collect photographs to document when the Robert Kennedy funeral train passed through Baltimore. And the following week, we'll be learning about the history and design of the Modernist Church of the Redeemer, which also happened to be a semifinalist in our recent Architecture March Madness competition. And now for today's presentation. This is a really exciting one. We're actually going to be on location at the Cloisters. And those of you who joined us in October for the virtual tour of the Bromo Tower might remember our tour guide, Annie Applegarth. She'll be leading us through the Cloisters, which is a really interesting place. It's a little slice of medieval Europe right here in Baltimore. And without further ado, Annie, I'm going to turn it over to you and stop sharing my screen.
Great. Hi, welcome to everybody. You may remember our madcap tour at the Bromo, but I work for the Baltimore Office of Promotion and Arts, and several historic facilities fall under that umbrella. The Cloisters being one of 4 of them. You've seen the Bromo. So welcome to the Cloisters. It was completed in 1932 by Sumner and Dudrea Parker. They built the house around architectural artifacts from all over the world that they designed around. So as we go through the house, you're going to see multiple different artifacts from as local as Loch Raven Reservoir and as far away as Hong Kong. And they put the house together in a medieval style. Melissa's my camera person. The first thing I'm going to point out to you about the house is that all the wood used in the house and all of the stone used to build the house was quarried here in Maryland and hewed off the property. Hewed meaning that they cut it down, sawed it down, and planed it so that it was workable wood. You'll see more examples of this inside. Also, as you go through, you're going to see an elaborate garden system that was not here when I arrived. So if you want to see the pre-garden, you're going to rent the movie Cry Baby by John Waters with Johnny Depp. And you'll see as he was begging for his true love's heart on the lawn of our castle, there was not a flower in sight. We're going to head up the steps. Again, Maryland flagstone and fieldstone, all quarried here in the state of Maryland. So the house was actually a labor of love, and you will find that there are many tributes to the husband and wife team that designed and maintained the house. Over the front door, the entrance of the door, is their wedding date. Sumner and Dudrea Parker married long before the house was completed. It was completed in 1932. Sumner Parker owned Baltimore Iron Works. So as all of you are driving all through the city, don't fall, you will find work done by his company, Decorative Ironwork, all over the city. There are some on City Hall. There are some on the War Memorial across from City Hall, are the most prevalent examples of his work. Again, we have Maryland fieldstone, Maryland flagstone. If you look at the roof, it's one of a kind in this country. It is built based on a system that follows a chess game. The small pieces are pawns, the large pieces are queens, thank you very much, in a castle, and they are held in by various pegs. It is, again, one of a kind in this country. So as you're looking at the front of the house, you're going to see artifacts that were collected from all over the world. So particularly the one that Melissa's going to show you, which is a goat and a bird, is from Germany. So they plopped them in where they wanted them to be exhibited. If you also look at the windows, instead of stained glass windows, the round bottoms are bottle bottoms that they collected from their wine collection and installed them in the windows. Now, we're gonna go inside. Oh, we do have, let's give them a picture of Ella. Ella is our office manager out here, also head of Homeland Security. So off she goes to chase off a varmint. We're gonna go inside the house. I don't know if we mentioned before, but we are also offering this group an opportunity to come in person on May 22nd between 11 and 2 to do an in-person tour. We will also have all of the historic collateral materials, old photographs, and that kind of thing, because we aren't going to get through this whole house in 20 minutes.
I think I just lost the big picture.
Can you guys still see me?
Can you guys still see Annie?
Yeah, we still see
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
So we are in the main entry of the hallway, and this originally, ooh, we have a big Hummer. This originally was tooled leather. So the Parkers had an extensive art collection that was auctioned off when they left the house, because they left no endowment to take care of the house. The tooled leather was extremely poor condition. So we went through an artist and I went through the auction catalogs, and the mural in this room is based on multiple Dutch manuscripts that were in their collection. So in trying to do some of the restoration of the houses itself, we have gone back to resources that were in the house itself. So all these critters and characters are from a Dutch manuscript that they had here in the house. Originally, this room was called the manuscript room because they kept a lot of their manuscripts here. So we thought it was very fitting to sort of recreate a historic mural based on some of their original plans and houses in the house. Also, they were a very quirky couple, I'm not gonna lie. There are certificates where they talked to the Baltimore Sun and had Aubrey Bodine come out and take photographs, insisting that the Duke and Wallace Simpson were negotiating with them to live in the house. We have a copy of a telegram from Buckingham Palace saying, there is no such negotiation taking place, and they aren't coming to America, nor are they living in Baltimore, Maryland. But it was a way that they tried to brand and market their own house. Also, a very interesting thing about the Parkers is the house was completed in 32. In the late 30s, they invited the public to come out and see their extensive art collection, to see minor, non-professional theatricals, poetry readings, and a variety of things. What is very cool about that, they started to run a trolley from downtown Baltimore to bring people up in the summertime to this vast 66-acre property, which also had a pool. And they purposefully did not discriminate on who could get on the trolley. So you could be of multiple backgrounds, religions, cultures, and you could still come out to the house and visit the house. They were very firmly planted in the idea that it should be open to the public. I will say that the house was left by Mrs. Parker to Baltimore City with the idea that it would continue to be available to the public. So there's a lot of history here that predates what all of us would imagine would be in this exclusive, what could have been an exclusive private castle. They've always wanted to remain very open and very public. I'm gonna pass you to team 2 here. Eliza and Kyrie are gonna take you through a second part of the house. And then Melissa and I are gonna go through to another portion when they're done. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Hi, so I'm Eliza. I'm here with Ella in the Cloisters living room. So the first thing I want to point out to you guys is this wood that makes up the ceiling here. So as Annie mentioned before, all the wood that makes up the Cloisters was cut down from trees that were growing on the property and hewn into these boards. So this is one example of that. You can just see really clearly making up that ceiling. So coming over here to the windows, the next thing I want to point out is these blackout windows. So this is really special. So because of all the World War panic that was going on, they wanted to build these windows that could have this metal sheet that would cover the entire window in the event of an emergency situation. So these are still inside all these windows in this room, and you can still pull them up and fully cover all those windows. Ooh, a little bit dusty in there. And then coming over this way, as Annie mentioned before, this whole house is full of all sorts of different features and artifacts that the Parkers collected, not only from the local area, but from all over Europe. All the 4 mantelpieces on the first floor of the house were salvaged from a chateau in Brittany, France. They have these medieval wooden figures right here on either side. And they also have some carved geometric designs. And then in the backs of the fireplace, and you can see back there, they have these blue and white Delft tiles with the floral designs. And you'll get a little bit of a better look at those in the bigger fireplace on the other side. And more of those awesome windows with the wine bottle details there, those 3 circles. And if we keep moving into the library, one of my personal favorite rooms in the house. More ornamental ironwork right here, designed by Mr. Parker. And then all these books, all of these shelves on the wall were all collected from a house down in Mount Vernon. So that's something that was locally, locally salvaged from the Parkers. And then something really fun in this room, something else to pull out. You've got these ladders that pull right out of the bookcases and lean down onto these iron shelves. Make it easy to climb up to the very top and grab a book. And you can see in this room, we have it all decorated in here with the owls and the flying books. So we've got a little bit of a Harry Potter theme going on. We host a lot of weddings here at the Cloisters, and a lot of couples love doing the Harry Potter theme, or Lord of the Rings theme, a medieval theme. So this room is really a big draw for that. We keep it decorated like this all year because we think it's really fun. As you can see, we've got all these books hanging, and all over the room there's all sorts of little owls. And you can notice more of this geometric medieval carving above this mantle as well. And then above that, we've got another mural done by that same local artist. And that's Millie, that dog up there. That's Ella's predecessor. Right, so now we can move into the gallery. So this is the largest indoor space in the house. Originally, the Parkers used this to, stage events. We call this the stage right here. So you can have performances up on this stage, have an audience sit down there. This room right here is called the chapel. Another really beautiful room. So these walls are actually clapboard into like stones. If you knock on it, it sounds a little bit hollow. In this room, on all these windows, you can see this Gothic tracery up here at the top of the windows. So that was taken off the Glen Ellen Mansion in Loch Raven, as were a lot of other details in the house. And then this stained glass right here actually was taken, salvaged from a 16th century mansion in Verona, Italy. And then this is one of the original light fixtures when the house was built. And you can also see, as we look upward here, these peacocks painted on the top of the walls here. Also painted by that same local artist that did the murals in the front hallway. All right, back out. We can see more of these original light fixtures when the house was constructed. And as Annie mentioned before, the movie Cry Baby was filmed here. This room was the location for the fancy cotillion in that scene. So if you notice, you can see coming down this way, these French doors, also taken from Glen Ellen. And then on this side, we've got another one of the fireplaces that was salvaged from the chateaus in France. So you can see the intricate carvings on there and these delft tiles in the back. There's also a cast iron fireplace backing that's carved as well. And one fun feature of these fireplaces, this flue, so this opens the flue open or close. And you can see when the flue's open, it has this ring that's an O. So when it's on the O side, that means it's open. And then you can pull down on the other side. And it has a C for closed. And we light fires in these fireplaces. They're still fully functional. So during winter events, you put a fire in there and it really heats up the house. And then above this fireplace, you can see another work of art done by our local artist, Barbara Thompson. That beautiful copper painting. And then the last thing in this room that I want to point out, there's these little windows above the doors that when the house was built, helped with heat flowing from room to room. Heat rises, so heat's going to be, up on the top of the room. So they have all these little windows that help push the heat throughout the house. And with that, I'm going to toss it back over to Annie.
Hi, we're back. So we're in another part of the house, which is called the dining room, and most likely because it's off the kitchen. But I don't think the family actually had any formal dining situations in this room. When you come on the 22nd, you'll see that they actually lived in the second and third floors of the house and had a kitchen there. So once again, the fireplace, very much like what Eliza described to you, mantles from other countries, panels from other countries. I'm going to point something out to you because we talked about flowers. So we work with a woman, Holly Frisch, to do our flowers and arrangements. And most of the things that she collects for our arrangements are from our gardens here on the Cloisters. So you'll see, and we will go out to the cloistered garden, that many of these flowers, lilacs, that kind of thing has it. Again, we have the ironworks and the window bases, but we're going to walk out to an area of the house that was completely removed from the Glen Allen mansion in one piece, all 3 floors, and placed against this house as an addition. So as part of the Glen Allen mansion in Loch Raven Reservoir, when that mansion burned down, they took windows, doors, all kinds of things, and they're placed throughout this house. But the section we're gonna go into right now was completely brought over and rebuilt as it was on the other house. And these doors and windows, all from the Glen Allen mansion. Now we also, I'm gonna stop Melissa there. We have an amphitheater in 1977. I don't know if I can open this. There we go. When the city inherited the property from the family, they put it in an amphitheater. And while we can have weddings and multiple situations out there, we also do theatricals in the same vein that the family wanted to do earlier. We do some theatricals, a little opera, a little soft shoe. And then we're gonna, we're gonna walk through the kitchen so that we can see the back of the house and the cloister, which is what we're named for. This door was brought over from England somewhere in the 1920s. So this is where I'm gonna let Melissa do the video. This is the cloistered garden, which is why the house is named the Cloisters. And many people assume that a cloister has a religious background. The reality is that a cloistered garden that is enclosed for reflection, and the actual religious aspects came in later because of the reflection portion of it. People decided to use them. So we planted this, and again, you'll see flowers that we had inside the house many are from this garden itself. But this was one of the main, they built the house around this garden. They really wanted a cloistered area. I'm not sure about the wind. But if you can still hear me. But we often have many brides, and Melissa will follow me, come out. Multiple weddings are out here, multiple parties are out here. But oftentimes we have the bride or the bride and groom come to this spot. And this bell is from a chapel that it was in Wales that they brought back with them. Eliza and Kyrie, the other team. And I want to walk up that way.
Sure.
We'll all meet up there and sit on the wall and answer questions.
Okay.
So my favorite and my mother's favorite, I planted all of these lilies of the valley. So that's the one thing you get to do when you are designing the garden, plant all your favorites. And this is the actual cloistered walkway. Show them the window. Now, we have a windmill here on the property that is under construction. The Isola companies, Tony Isola and his dad are helping us. We lost 2 of the sails in a windstorm. We will show you the windmill. It's being reconstructed. Tell you a fun little story. Let's look at these red buds right here, and then we're gonna stop. So, you know, I think it's right here. Okay, right here. I think it's very important. You saw a picture of my first dog here, and we have plants that represent various people's families or people who got married here. These red buds were given to us as seedlings. They were the wedding gift for people as they were leaving the wedding. And the mother of the bride left me 2. So this red bud is one of them. This red bud is the other one. And we planted them and they've grown tall and strong as the couple who now have 2 children. And every spring I think of that young couple when they got married here. So I think it's important to put a little bit of who's here in these historic buildings as we continue to create the history for these buildings. So now we're going to go in the cloisters and start answering your questions. Take it, Nathan, take it.
Thanks, Eddie. We have a bunch of questions that are coming in, and please, everyone, add any other questions you have into the question and answer box. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Here's a good one. So for people who
Everybody sit here.
In Baltimore, can you orient us a bit? Like, where is the Cloisters in relation to Baltimore City?
Okay, the Cloisters is in Lutherville, but it belongs to the city. I'll explain that in a minute. It's on Falls Road. It's in the, it's basically where Falls Road, 83 and 695 all converge. It's in a little north of the Beltway, a little south of Green Spring Station.
Great. And can you talk a little bit about how the city came into possession of the property?
So part of the story that I told earlier is that the family always wanted to have have public access. And so when Mrs. Parker died in 1973, she wanted it left to the city. There was some issue with probate, so the city didn't actually get it until 1977. It was offered to the Maryland Historical Society first, and they weren't quite sure what to do with it. So Mayor Schaefer at the time took it, and it became what a lot of people will remember as a children's museum. And Jody Albright and multiple people from the City Arts Council came out and created, because there were lots of collections of toys and multiple things, created a children's museum. And it was a children's museum until 1997, when it was determined that it was not, and you can keep that just on us. It was determined that it was not ADA for children's museums. So the city and the state joined and created Port Discovery, and the castle became predominantly a special events facility and a historic home. Did that help?
Yeah, yeah. And what did the family do with the original furnishings? Like, did that go to the city, or were they sold?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. So the city, because there was a pretty ironclad will as to what she wanted to have happen and which family members should get things. So the city had to go back when they realized that they did not have the resources to maintain the house itself. But I can tell you, it cost us, when we redid the roof in 2008, almost $250,000 to have the roof done historically. So they went to the courts to break the will, and they sold multiple items in the collection on a public auction, which I have the auction books. Some of the items are on loan to other cultural institutions. For example, the Walters has several of the China collections. The Poe Museum has several of pieces from their Poe collection. The Baltimore Museum of Art has several pieces. The Maryland Historic Society has several Peale portraits. And the zoo even has a portion of her attic collection in the attic in one of theirs. So multiple pieces that were significant to Baltimore or Maryland history are on loan throughout the city and the state.
Okay, here's an interesting question. It's about the fireplaces. So the person was surprised to see that the beautiful tiles were inside the fireplace and not on the outside. Weren't they concerned about the tiles getting damaged or dirtied?
I can't tell you. We do clean them off at the end of the season, which is about now, so that they go back to their original. But to my knowledge, there hasn't been a lot of destruction from the heat. I mean, I imagine a kiln where they were fired. I don't know much about artwork in kilns. Probably runs at a very higher temperature than any of our fires. But I don't know if they were personally worried. I assume not, since they did. It was their choice.
Great. And are the cloisters ADA accessible?
We are. We are not throughout the entire house, and that was one of the reasons it's no longer a children's museum. You can enter through a handicap entrance in the back of the building through the library, which Eliza showed you, or through the garden here. You have accessibility on the first floor, and we have ADA specific bathroom on the first floor. But we do accommodate. For example, we've had a handicap ride and a handicap wedding party, so we create other spaces so that people don't have to go upstairs to be a part of the event that we're having.
A question from someone who was asking about, you mentioned that the family basically lived on the second floor. What did they use the first floor for?
It was open to the public. They had a massive art collection. They did poetry readings in the one gallery room that Eliza showed you. There's an elevated portion of the room, and they did performances, poetry readings, dance.
Tapestries.
Oh, the tapestries?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah,
they
some
have
of the
those.
tapestries in the house were hanging in that room.
And you said that the house was built with flagstone and fieldstone. Can you tell us what the difference is between those two materials?
Actually, it's where you live that determines the difference. So in Maryland, it's called fieldstone. Throughout the rest of the country, it's called flagstone.
Great. And how did the owners make their fortune?
I assume from the research I've done that Mr. Parker came into this life with a family that had significant resources, but he also was an entrepreneur and also ran Baltimore Iron Works. And as you drive through the city, you'll see on most historic buildings, there is a significant amount of iron work, but not just decorative iron work. They also created a lot of the iron work in construction. So if you think of the time frame when they were doing the construction, it was around the Great Fire. So they were probably doing a major amount of construction and restoration throughout the city.
And how many children did they have?
Three. They had three children and several grandchildren throughout. We have been able to befriend the grandchildren and one of the children before they passed away. They have come here to have family reunions. There is a private family crypt here on the property where the Parkers are buried, and they come to pay respects to their family. So multiple grandchildren that we see at least once a year, if not more, and have provided us with multiple stories, newspaper clippings, and photographs that we use here in our history tours.
Oh, great. And we didn't get to see the upstairs today, but how many rooms are upstairs?
There are 6 on the second floor and essentially 3 and major hallways on the third floor and 2 bathrooms on every floor.
Great. And we're getting some questions about the in-person tours on the 22nd. Can you talk a little bit about how that's going to work? Do people just show up?
Yes. Mask. We will have what we've done. I don't know if anybody on this call has done it, but with Baltimore Heritage, we have done in-person tours. So what we do is set up in each room of the house various pieces of artifacts that we have, newspaper articles. So and we have tours and we have information. So right now we're at 75 people capacity so far. We've been able to manage that and make sure people are in different rooms as they need to be in different rooms. If all 200 people on this call show up at 11 o'clock, we might do some fancy dancing in the parking lot, but we should be okay.
Great. And are your offices at the Cloisters?
I have an office at the Cloisters, an office at the Bromo, and an office in a bike messenger bag because I also work at School 33 and the top of the world observation level on the 27th floor. Great.
And if someone was interested in checking out the Cloisters at a different date, do you do appointments?
We absolutely do private appointments. We're not always set up for the full historic portion of it with everything out, the artifacts. But if they want something specific, they can call the office or email me from the website. We also, just as a point of reference, also have a virtual tour that we did in November that doesn't include all the historic information, but will show you second and third floor throughout the house and artifacts. And it's on our website. You can just click on it and watch it.
Great. I just shared the website in the chat, and I think we can maybe do one more question here if anyone has any last questions they'd like to have answered. Someone's asking about the link. Yes, this program is being recorded and we'll have it on our YouTube channel if you look up the Baltimore Architecture Foundation.
I'll just say this, if you forget everything else, if every piece of paper you wrote this on flies out the window, just put into Google Cloisters Castle. And you'll get, if you put Cloisters Castle, you'll get the one in Maryland. If you just put in Cloisters, you'll get the one that's part of the Metropolitan in New York.
Right. Yeah, I think I saw a question from someone who I think was confused if this was about the New York or the Baltimore Cloisters. But so I have one more question for you, Annie. Are you currently booking events at the Cloisters?
Yes. So the way that all COVID gives us a different view of the world in multiple ways. So we were doing small wedding ceremonies, and then as of the beginning of April, the gathering numbers that the mayor came up with were a little higher. So we could go to 50, and now we can go to 75. So people who had scheduled their weddings, who are willing to be within those gathering numbers, are having their weddings. We are booking weddings after September 1st, new weddings. And right now our books are open through the end of 2022.
And everyone, please remember that if you want to go and see the Cloisters in person and get a cool history tour of the place and see some more of the rooms, head on over on May 22nd between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock. And Annie would be happy to show you around.
And
Thanks.
Eliza, and Melissa, and Kyrie.
Yeah,
I'll be
the
there.
whole crew. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us back, Nathan.
Of course.